Welcome back to Solo Marvel Champion. Today I want to share with you the first of two campaign systems I've been developing. This first one is my second campaign idea, but was the easier of the two to develop and test, and I call it the Pocketverse. I do want to talk briefly about why I'm even developing these systems, but you can skip ahead if it doesn't interest you. Both of my campaigns, and also a new mode I'm playing around with, came about for two reasons. I have the entire collection, and now, finally, I've played the entire collection. And while I've been enjoying campaign play a lot more lately, the opposite is also true. Single, one-off games are becoming less appealing, at least between campaign expansions. I want a compelling reason to play different heroes against different villains, while also getting some fun, campaign-style decision-making without playing the same campaign over and over again. Now, with that said, I've been developing these systems since before Next Evolution came out. I've played it 20 times now, and I'm still loving it, but the story is always exactly the same. So, for inspiration, I turned to a board game which is by far my favorite game which isn't an FFG card game, and that's Thunderbolt Apache Leader. I'm not a wargamer, and strictly speaking, this may not even be considered a wargame, but there are three reasons this is my favorite board game. It provides random campaign setup, difficult and interesting strategic decisions, and great in-mission tactical decisions. I've played 23 TAL campaigns, and they've provided a different experience every single time, primarily because of that random campaign setup and lack of linear story. You set everything up and let a story emerge through play. I feel like I have accomplished this with both of my campaign systems. Pocketverse gives me a fun and quick 3-scenario campaign which is completely different every time I play it, and I can tell whatever story emerges from the combination of heroes and villains, and victories and defeats. So if I haven't lost you already, please stick around and let me tell you about the Pocketverse campaign. A Pocketverse is a small, pocket universe pinched off from a much larger one. As such, the Pocketverse contains fewer villains, and because of that there are fewer heroes and even fewer aspects. In fact, in a Pocketverse there are only 3 villains, 3 heroes, and 3 aspects. Now if you think that sounds exactly like the cube I described in mid-December, you're 100% correct. I had the general idea of a Pocketverse and needed a limiting factor, and since I really enjoy Mojo Mania as a 3-scenario campaign, I decided on 3 villains for my Pocketverse. Then, since 3 cubed is 3 times 3 times 3, I designed the cube as 3 villains, 3 aspects, and 3 heroes. I'll get into the rules for the Pocketverse campaign shortly, but I want to mention one thing about it really quickly. While the rules allow for a complete randomization of the cube, I didn't really want to do that for this explanation video. So I made the cube video to collect some cubes, or Pocketverses, and my subscribers didn't let me down. As I'm reading this, I have 6 cubes from subscribers, and I've selected one of them for this video. Past me here, as I'm recording this video, the rules are complete, but I'm still working on the PDF to make it look and read the best it possibly can. So what you see on screen may not be the final version. Future me now, as the video is releasing, the PDF is complete, it's linked in the description and pinned in the comments. The rules for Pocketverse Setup, called that so as not to be confused with campaign setup, are pretty simple with only 4 steps. And while they're written from the true solo perspective, there is an addendum for 2, 3, and 4 hero games. Step 1, create, randomize, or otherwise obtain your Pocketverse. And of course that is defined in the rules, that's a 3x3x3 cube. For this video, I chose the cube submitted by Jonathan Pickles. That's Mutagen Formula, Hela, and Venom for scenarios, Captain Marvel, Domino, and Rocket for heroes, and Aggression, Leadership, Protection for aspects. Step 2, shuffle the villains together, deal them out from left to right, and then record them to the villain zones in that order on your campaign log. Step 3, assign 1 hero and 1 aspect to each villain zone, and build each hero deck. This is where strategic decision making comes into play. I'm going to assign mine like this, but it's not just about deciding which hero and aspect to play against a given villain, because you have 3 things to consider. The first is distance from home base to villain zone, and this is all available right on the campaign log. Distance between home base and the first zone is 1, 2 to the second, and 3 to the third villain zone. This distance contributes, along with two other factors, to the hero's total travel time to that villain, which adds that much threat to the villain's main scheme. Difficulty is another factor, as Expert increases total travel time by 1. The second consideration is training, which also contributes to total travel time. If a hero defeats their villain, they can meet up with the hero assigned to the next villain zone to train them. Doing so delays that hero's matchup, increasing total travel time by an additional 1, but the benefit for doing so is that it allows the victorious hero to add up to 3 aspect cards from their deck to that hero's deck. These cards will not count towards minimum or maximum deck size, and may also be passed to the next hero in line when the time comes. The final consideration is planning. Your total travel time is adding threat to the main, but it also gives your hero time to plan. During campaign setup, you may search your deck for a card with printed resource cost less than or equal to the total travel time, and add it to your hand. I assign my heroes like this for 3 reasons. Number 1, leadership is how I play Captain Marvel, and aggression is how I play Rocket, so that was an easy choice. Number 2, I want to be able to pass Beast and call for backup to Domino, and then Beast and 2 repurpose to Rocket. Number 3, Rocket should have a total travel time of 4, so I can grab Beast into my opening hand if I want to, but will probably grab my Particle Cannon. So that's the strategic portion of the campaign, with step 4 telling you to play through each villain zone from left to right, following the campaign setup instructions and victory or defeat instructions along the way. Alright, step 0 of campaign setup is just a reminder that campaign setup happens after villain setup and before drawing your opening hand. Both of these are relevant to the Pocketverse. Step 1 is calculating total travel time, which is super easy when you're looking at the campaign log. It's just distance, plus 1 for expert, and plus 1 for training delay if that happened. Step 2, add additional threat to the main scheme equal to your total travel time. If that causes the main scheme to advance, do so now. I wanted to add that reminder about the order because of Mr. Sinister and others like him who may come out in the future. Mr. Sinister specifically advances through his 1B during villain setup. So when you get to this step of campaign setup, you're not adding threat to 1B, which would be meaningless because that's going to advance anyway. You're adding it to 2B. Step 3, search your deck for 1 card with printed resource cost less than or equal to your total travel time. Add that card to your hand and shuffle your deck. Then, even though step 0 was a reminder, I remind you again that this means you'll already have 1 card in your hand when you draw up to your opening hand size. Finally, step 4 is, look at your campaign log. If there's a checked Villain Emboldened box in your current villain zone, deal the top 2 cards of the encounter deck face down as encounter cards. I'll explain that in just a moment. So that's campaign setup for each matchup. You'll do all of that, draw the rest of your opening hand, do your mulligan, and then play the game. This is a fail-forward campaign, meaning after the game you'll read the appropriate victory or defeat instructions, and then move on to the next villain zone and the matchup there. Victory instructions are simple. You may train the hero in the next villain zone by adding up to 3 aspect cards from your deck to that hero's deck. If you do so, write +1 in the box next to training delay in the next villain zone. Defeat instructions are also simple. Place a check mark in the Villain Emboldened box in the next villain zone, and that's what's referenced during step 4 of campaign setup. That's it, that's the Pocketverse campaign. There's also some campaign victory and defeat text, but that's mostly flavor. So if you would, please let me know what you think. Please let me know if you want me to run this particular Pocketverse on the channel, and if you run a Pocketverse for yourself, please let me know how your experience was. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a marvelous day.